So on number 1, we have this complex number. We know it's complex because it's written in the form real plus imaginary. And we're going to add that to another complex number, which again is real plus imaginary. So when you're adding these together, you need to combine the real parts and combine the imaginary parts. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to get rid of these parentheses. Okay, since there's nothing in front here, I could just bring this down as 4 plus 2i. And then for this part, because this is plus 1, which means distribute 1 to everything, nothing changes. So we really don't need the parentheses. If this were a minus, I would need to distribute the minus and negate everything. Negate means change the sign. But it's a plus, so those are easy. From there, standard form is to put the real part first. Well, all of this is addition and subtraction. So I could go 4 minus 3, and I know that's 1. And then that's the real part. Now I'm going to do the imaginary part, which is 2i minus 5i, which is minus 3i. Now when you're doing these, you always put the real part first, the imaginary part second. This is called a complex number. It's complex because it has the imaginary and also the real. Okay, so also on number 1, before we start number 2, your calculator is smart enough to get 1 minus 3i by itself. So if I go to the calculator and I type it in, notice it gets 1 minus 3i. So when you type it in, you hit enter, you get 1 minus 3i. Where does the I come from? It's the period, it's in blue, so I'd hit second period to get the I. Now, let's go and do a subtraction. So subtraction is very similar. Nothing in front, so I bring it down without the parentheses. But now, I need to negate everything. The negative is going to distribute in. So the negative is going to change positives to negatives. It's going to change negatives to positives. So all we have is positives, so it's going to change them all to negatives. But if it were negative, it would change it to positive. So it'd be minus 5, minus 2i, go collect your real part first, negative 3, minus 5, negative 8, and then 4i minus 2i is positive 2i's. So I just got the answer here. Now I'm going to go and verify that in my calculator. So I went ahead and typed the problem in to see what we get. Let's see what we get. I'm hoping for negative 8 plus 2i. There we go. Negative 8 plus 2i is what I just got. So you can do all of this on your calculator. So here's an example of taking a complex number times a complex number. When you have 2 terms times 2 terms, you end up with 2 times 2 terms. That'd be 4. So there should be 4 terms. And the process we're going to use is called FOIL, or some people just call it the distributive property. You're going to take 3 and you're going to distribute it to the 5. So 3 times 5, 15. And then you're going to take the 3 and distribute it to the 4i. And you just take 3 times the 4 is 12 with an I, just like you do with x's. And if there were more in here, you would just keep multiplying everything by 3. From there, we go to our second term, negative 2i, and I distribute that to the 5. Negative 2i times 5 is negative 10i. And then you distribute the orange to the second term. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And I times I is I squared. So from here, I combine like terms. I see that these are like terms. And 12i minus 10i is 2i. Then I'll pull down my 15. Now this is kind of tricky because I squared by definition is negative 1. So this is the same thing as negative 8 times negative 1, because I times I is negative 1. So we have negative 8 times negative 1 would be plus 8. So anytime you see I squared is always negative 1. So we changed I squared to negative 1, and we know that negative times negative is positive. And then from there, 15 plus 8 is what? 24? No. 23. And then 23 plus 2i. So there's my reduced form. Okay. Let's go and check it in the calculator. Ta-da! On the ACT, don't do these by hand. If you have this calculator, just type them in. Oops. So now we see that when you type that in, you get 23 plus. So I'm not sure if that was recording, but if you type this in, you get 23 plus 2i when you do the multiplication.